We want to tell you about a new show from Osiris, After Midnight. It tells the story of Fish's groundbreaking festival on the eve of the new millennium, Big Cypress.
Was that the show where they built a whole city for their fans?
Yes, it is. They built a city for 80,000 fans in the Everglades and capped off the festival by playing for 7 hours, ending the concert during sunrise on January 1st, 2000.
That's the word epic in a nutshell right there.
This 5-episode series includes interviews with band members Trey Anastasio and John Fishman, fans and crew, and looks back on one of the most unique performances in music history.
Go listen at osirispod.com/aftermidnight and enjoy.
You'll be bouncing around the room.
Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest. Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Ow!
What's up? What is up? Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020 and welcome back to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Elia Einhorn, and joining me from Pittsburgh, PA,
Nick Dawson, editor-in-chief of Talkhouse Film. I'm currently ensconced in my mother-in-law's office, and I am living the life.
balling your way into 2020, baby. I love it. Well, Nick, welcome back to the show. We have a very cool episode to kick things off over here. Singer-songwriter Damien Jurado in conversation with Nick Thune ahead of their sad music, sad comedy tour that kicks off in just about a week.
I'm such a big fan of Damien Jurado. It's really cool to have him on the podcast. I feel like he's one of the great singer-songwriters of this generation, and he's done so much work in the past 20, 25 years. And to me, at his pinnacle, he can't be topped.
Damien's released records over the years on iconic labels like Sub Pop and Secretly Canadian. He's currently releasing via Mama Bird Recording Company and Loose. His newest record was last year's. Nick, I can say last year's now. 2019 was last year.
Yes.
It was the record In the Shape of a Storm. Really beautiful. That dropped last spring. Let's take a listen to one of those tracks. Which one do you want to play?
Yeah, let's play Throw Me Now, Your Arms.
Let me be the first to tell you I would give up my life every day as the tides grow close.
Really beautiful stuff.
His ballads are just gorgeous.
Now, of course, Damien is the sad music part of this tour, but let's get to the sad comedy part. Nick Thune is a comedian actor from Seattle with an absolute deadpan wit and totally absurdist outlook on life that he doles out over the soothing lull of his guitar.
Yeah, it's fascinating how he combines music with his comedy in such a unique way.
He does. And Nick, I'll just be honest. I think most comedians who try to bring music into their act fail miserably. He totally rocks it. Listeners have seen Nick over the last few years in some amazing shows. I'm thinking Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, Happy Endings, Burning Love. He's made appearances on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, At Midnight, Comedy Bang Bang, and he's also graced the silver screen.
He had a cameo in Knocked Up. He was in Mr. Roosevelt, the Noel Wells movie that came out a couple of years ago. He was in Mike Judge's Extract. Guy has been around.
He's worked on some amazing projects and worked with some amazing collaborators. One of them, quite notable to this talk, Richard Swift, the musician who played in the Black Keys and the Shins and produced many fantastic records, including the legendary Stereolab's Laetitia Sadier.
And also Nick Thune and Damien Jurado. And the two of them met at one of the Richard Swift memorial concerts in 2018. And this sad music, sad comedy tour is in a way an extension of the legacy of Richard Swift and their friendship as well. And it's really cool the way that they share stories on this episode about working with and being friends with Richard.
Yeah, it's evident from this conversation how much love and respect they had for Richard, and also took some inspiration from him in a number of different areas, including Nick's getting sober. Richard Swift died of complications from alcoholism, and we hear about Nick's story, a first that I've ever heard, Nick, of singing to hallucinations.
He basically got sober because he recognized that he was on the same path as Richard and could easily end up another casualty of alcoholism in early life if he wasn't careful. It's such a great story because it sort of captures the humor and the pathos of this conversation. There's a very funny conversation while they're talking about some very serious subjects.
It is. And along that line, we get to hear how comedians wish they were musicians and how musicians wish they were comedians.
It's a classic conundrum. Are you going to be funny or are you going to be a great singer? Or in this case, maybe those guys are actually kind of both, I would say.
Put them on tour, you got everything.
There we go. And on that note, they do actually, on this very podcast, plan their tour and the things that they want to do.
I love that. So Cracker Barrel, watch out because these dudes are coming for you. The guys also get into being terrible at school.
Yeah, it turns out you don't have to be an academic genius to be a successful comedian or a musician, which is reassuring.
That's good for me to know.
We have Nick teaching his kid manipulative behavior just to make him a better player at Made You Look.
Damien discovering the Beatles in his late 40s.
And the band that he desperately wanted to be a member of when he was a kid.
Damien, you put on that makeup and you can still do it, pal.
I believe it.
Should we roll the tape?
Let's roll the tape.
Well, Nick, here we are.
Are we actually recording?
Yeah. Well, Nick,
I
here
didn't
we
get
are.
the go-ahead.
What?
I didn't get the go-ahead, the recording go-ahead. So.
Oh. Well, here we are. We were just talking about chords, actually. We were talking about, like...
What's your favorite chord?
Well, my favorite chord is probably... it's called a D minor 7.
A D, M, Sev.
What about you?
Oh, I tend to gravitate towards C a lot.
Why is that?
And that's with a G undertone.
Right.
Where
where you use the pinky?
Yeah, you throw the pinky on the G. I just think it sounds full and nice, and I feel like every guitar, I can tell if it's in tune or not immediately if I play a C.
Would you say that throw the pinky on the G sounds like a Limp Bizkit outtake?
Got like a B-side, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like the unheard of B-side to...
And where they came up with that was remember when they were auditioning guitarists? They did
no.
I can't believe you can't remember.
No.
Well, they went on just a worldwide search to get their new guitarist. And apparently that's why they hired the guy. He came up with put the pinky on the G. Which
He did it all for the pinky on the G.
Yeah, God, what a great band to kind of model our tour off, I think.
Tell me a little bit about your background, because you and I were actually kind of newer. We're not really friends, Nick. Let's just be honest. We're not friends.
Okay.
We're acquaintances.
Yeah. But this tour is going to change it. And also, I thought we could actually plan out the tour a bit on this interview.
I'd be into that.
Because I don't know how we're getting from show to show.
Well, let's get into that in a little bit, because I do want to talk about that actually with you, and might as well just do it here and be open and honest with people, and more revealing, the better, I think.
And we'll talk about what we like, what we don't like.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little bit about your background. You're from Seattle?
Yeah.
Are you technically from Seattle proper, or
Born in
East Side?
Tacoma.
Oh, okay, Tacoma.
And then, lived in Portland for 7 years.
Okay.
And then moved to the East Side and then moved to Ballard.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Did you go to Ballard High School?
No, Redmond High School.
Oh, okay. Wow, okay. So wait,
And then I was in Ballard for 6 years.
Okay, so to get an
5.
idea of your age, you just turned 40?
Just turned 40 on Sunday.
So you would have been 11 when Nevermind came out?
Yeah. And then 14 when Kurt Cobain went out.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't it crazy to pick like an event in like time to determine how old a person is?
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing Nevermind at 11? Were you impressed at all?
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to figure out what year Sabotage came out.
Oh, man.
Because
I don't know.
First of all, my concept of fame and how big Nirvana was very... When the people that are famous are from your city, like Ken Griffey Jr., for instance, like, I don't know how much baseball you like.
Yeah.
But Ken Griffey Jr., I didn't know he was famous all over the world until he was on The Simpsons. Like, I thought that he was just famous in Seattle.
Okay.
And so I thought the same thing of Nirvana.
Oh, okay.
I had no concept that everyone else knew who they were.
Okay.
And so I just assumed they were like a hometown famous band.
Wow.
And Nirvana, or Nevermind, I like heard, and then when I saw the video, obviously it was like, wow, this is cool. Because I really responded to videos.
Yeah.
But then I would say Sabotage is the first time that I was like, I love guitar.
Yeah.
I want to learn guitar.
Yeah. And what an interesting way to be introduced to guitar like that from a hip-hop group.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that Letterman performance of them?
Yes.
Oh, God.
It's infamous. It's insane.
So good.
I mean, they were actually one of the first bands I ever saw, either live or on TV, and obviously listening on record, where you're like, wow, these guys are into a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like having a band where everybody's like, you know, I mean, they all had the same kind of idea,
right?
But they all like different music. So it's so, you know, like it's when you watch a band that totally dresses differently.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, wow, that guy, who brought that bass player in?
Yeah. I got to say that when I first started writing music, I had no idea, because I identified with this with the Beastie Boys, actually, because I was like, these guys like everything. And they want to obviously do everything.
Yeah.
Rock, soul, funk, hip hop. And I just remember thinking, man, that's what I kind of want to strive to do. I don't want to ever be pegged or put in a hole as far as like genre is concerned.
Because it'd be pretty easy to put you in folk.
Exactly, because you have acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
But my records don't even sound like that.
No, not at all.
So, you know, speaking of the early 90s, there was also that era, you know, that was when you heard like people like Beck, who were pretty much doing, again, all over the map. It wasn't just, you know.
Yeah, because he came out of like a Loser and then like an album where he played like Deborah, you know, like that song. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's when I really wanted to sing. When I heard that song, I thought, how do you do that?
Yeah. What was the first concert you ever attended?
It's embarrassing.
Go ahead.
I mean, first like major stadium concert.
Yeah.
Boys to Men.
Really?
Yeah.
Tacoma Dome?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Tacoma Dome. But then I lived in Redmond, and so I would go to the Firehouse in Redmond.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you played at.
Yeah. I used to go to hardcore shows there.
Yeah. Then that was just like pretty cool little thing in my little area of Seattle that had a really eclectic, you know, and it was also just a place you could go hang out.
It was Redmond, the whole east side, you know, east of Seattle, Bellevue, Redmond, and Kirkland. They had a thriving all ages scene there.
Yeah.
Which Seattle, you know, had, but it was difficult because we had the teen dance ordinance and things like that. And
like the one in that Kevin Bacon movie.
what was it? Footloose?
Yeah. You know, where you know, dancing's illegal.
Right. Yeah.
Because,
do you remember this in the early 90s? It was like this in Seattle. It was like, but the east side was great because you can go there and play and go to attend all ages shows. And like I remember when Fugazi came to town, I saw 2 Fugazi shows on the east side because they couldn't play in Seattle because there was nowhere to really play.
Yeah.
You know, because all ages that's such a weird thing, you know, but
I mean, it's still the same thing with comedy where I don't know how often you get like messages from kids that are like, I really wish I could come to your show. Can you get me in?
Yeah. Only my own
21
kids.
and over. Yeah. Have your kids been to a show of yours?
My oldest son, Miles, has been to maybe 3 shows. My youngest, Coltrane, has been to about, technically he went to one when he was an infant and then again when he was a little bit older, but I don't know. My kids don't really care about my music. I mean, they do care about my music, actually. You know, my oldest son, Miles, helped me actually arrange one of my records.
Wow.
Which is really cool. But what about your kid?
Has Miles ever been to Canada?
Yes.
Yeah, and did they enjoy him there? Or did they get him at all?
I don't think that he gets it.
Yeah. Okay.
What does your son think about you? Not about you as a person or a dad, but does he think you're funny?
Yes. Yeah,
does,
and I've heard him telling his friends that he has the funniest dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
Also, at his birthday party, he's 6 now. At his birthday party, they were around the table, and I said, hey, why don't we all go around the table and say what we think is really cool about towns? That sounds like such a lame thing to do, but
that's actually a very parent thing to do.
Yeah, and the first kid, his buddy goes, he's funny. That's it. He's just funny. And I could tell that he is kind of the funny guy. And I taught him this interesting thing that people have been on either side of me teaching him. So my family, I grew up playing a game called Made You Look. Mm-hmm. And, the most basic term of made you look is me saying like, oh my God, looking over. Who brought a Lamborghini Countach into the studio? And then you turn around and it's like, gotcha, there's no Countach in the studio, you idiot.
Right.
Made you look. And so my family does that on like an extreme level where it's been like, some of the worst versions of it. Like somebody looking for something for a half hour because you're at the airport and can't get in. And then it's like you send a picture of your passport and you're like, made you look.
Right. I like it.
And so with Towns, I was teaching him that. And then I would do a made you look on him and get him every time because I'm pretty good. And then he immediately would try and do it on me. Like no break and waiting, just immediately try and do it. And I go, listen, here's what you need to do. After I do it, you need to refresh. It's like when you eat sushi and eat ginger. And he's like, what's sushi? And I'm like, let's figure something else out here. But you need to distract me and then get me. So most people want to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So right after I do that, you should ask me a question about me and act interested in it. And watch me move on from the made you look. And then once I moved on, then you get me.
Right.
So I was teaching him how to manipulate people.
Wow.
In a weird, odd way. But then he figured it out and that day got his mom on this, like the same thing. And it really worked great. And I think it's teaching him really good brain exercise, but it is manipulation.
Well, here's a good question for you then on that. Is funny learned or is funny natural?
I think it's learned. I think I learned. My dad was just so good and funny,
Like good timing.
I mean, I think it's probably like the way that singing is, like if you grow up around a singer and they're singing, you're going to kind of move into that, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Something that what's funny about that is this is a good question for you because I didn't grow up in a musical family. Neither of my parents were musical whatsoever.
At all.
Neither of my brothers and my sisters weren't either. And I grew up in a big family. And
were they ever into bands and music and stuff?
No. I grew up. My dad had a few, like Frank Zappa records or. The radio wasn't always on in my house. I didn't grow up with the Beatles. I'm presently right now discovering the Beatles at age 47.
Yeah.
Because as a kid, I didn't grow up with them. And
then you're just trying to act like you knew them the whole time. And then finally you're like, wait a second. Why don't I actually?
Right. No, I didn't pretend to know. I mean, my surroundings as a kid were, even the neighborhoods I grew up in, nobody listened to the Beatles. Their parents weren't listening to the Beatles.
Yeah.
So anyways, but nobody in my family was a musician. But I loved music. And I loved, painting and things like that. And again, nobody in my family was a visual artist either. It just sort of happened. So my upbringing was just listening to lots of music. And then deciding, wow, I think I want to maybe do that,
Yeah.
And even that was kind of a learn as you go thing,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Did you listen to Neil Young at all when you were young?
No. My upbringing was basically this. I grew up in a house with no music, really, for the most part.
Christian?
No, my mom was Mormon.
Oh.
So... And technically, you could say Christian. I'm not going to get into that debate. But yeah, so I grew up in a Mormon household. Not strict at all. My parents were very liberal, as far as religion goes. So,
and politics, or
even politically speaking, they were very liberal people. So yeah, I didn't have. It wasn't like I didn't have access to music or whatever. I did have that, but I just sort of fell into music, and I knew that's what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
So, but it's all been a learning process. But speaking of funny, there's this one of my favorite interviews I've ever heard in my life. Is this Lenny Bruce interview. Mm-hmm. He's being interviewed at this radio station, and he's given the definition of what's funny and what is not funny, and he's doing it by actors and versus comedians. He'll say, like, W.C. Fields, funny. Jerry Lewis, not funny. Jonathan Winters, funny. Milton Berle, not funny. And this interview has stuck with me for a long time. Because one of the things that I did grow up around, my dad actually did enjoy, was comedy records. So I did have a knowledge about comedians, Red Fox, people like Lenny Bruce, Jonathan Winters, like I just named, so George Carlin, Bill Cosby.
That's pretty cool, the George Carlin thing, because I didn't really understand George Carlin.
You didn't?
Until I would say my 30s when I really was like, feel like this is something I've really skipped.
So he's like, so you'd say almost like he's like your version.
Like I thought he was
of the
like
Beatles.
Bill and Ted, you know. Like I was like yeah, that guy that kind of showed up in movies randomly.
Yeah. He's like your dirty uncle.
Yeah. But now when you listen to his stuff, you're like, man, he was so ahead of his time.
Right.
And so funny and smart, you know.
When did you first know that? When did you first realize this is what I want to do, like comedy?
It wasn't.
And was there anything before that you aspired to do?
I wanted to be a musician really bad. I really would fantasize about being on stage, but I you know, it's partially the thing of I loved having a room of people watching me.
Yeah.
And being able to be interesting enough for them to just be quiet and watch. And so that's, I think, where it started. I really loved having attention. And then when I had that attention, how long can I keep it? How long can I, like, keep them watching me? And a lot of my stand-up in the beginning, too, was like, sometimes it wasn't really that funny because I was learning how to write and stuff, but I was pretty interesting on stage because I was kind of into a character that demanded some sort of attention, you know, which people would kind of give me either way, and then I would, you know, eventually learn how to make it funny. But my dad his storytelling and stuff is what, when I watched him and watched people listen and watch him talk, I thought, I want to have that attention from people, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, did you think about performing in front of people with music, or did you just like music?
No, it was always in my head. You know, as a young kid, I just thought, like, I'm going to be in Kiss one day, you know?
Oh, wow.
I'm going to be the next guitar player of Kiss or singer of Kiss, even though I didn't know how to sing, and I sure as hell didn't play the guitar and never own one, you know? That was my goal when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Somewhere I have a drawing I did where it was like this, you know, I'm projecting myself in Kiss on a drawing. And I still have it somewhere.
That's
and
pretty
it says
funny,
age 8.
Kiss.
Yeah.
Do you ever do one of their songs?
No. Actually, I've never have. I'm not really big on covers, so no.
You did that covers album with Richard Swift, though.
I did, yeah.
I love that album. That album
Thank you.
is so, and you guys just shot it, I mean, did it in a weekend, right?
We did it in a day.
Yeah.
That was insane, yeah. Other people's songs.
Are there another set of songs?
Well, that's what we were supposed to be working on
Yeah.
before he passed. So, how did you end up meeting Richard?
Through his manager.
Okay.
Yeah. When I got my first record deal, I got a budget and I wanted to make songs that were like me singing, that weren't live, like in front of a stand-up audience, but I wanted them to be very unique. And the Bully, you know, his all, like, that's what drew me into Richard in the first place.
Yeah.
And then everything else. But I just thought, you know, I want somebody like this. And I actually remember the first thing Richard said when I got to Cottage Grove and got in there, we were just talking about our ideas, and I had, like, you know, these 5 songs that were, like, kind of there and not there. And I think I was talking like, you know, I wanted to sound cool in some weird way.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, you're not going to sound cool. That would be going, that's not what we're doing here. We're not here to make you sound cool.
Right.
And that just clicked in my head. And what he did in the studio, I mean, do you know Alex Cameron? Do you listen to his music at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I love his music. And Roy, his saxophone player, was over at my house.
Okay.
And I played him one of the songs that Richard and I did together. And he was like, so you guys did our sound like 12 years ago. And I was like, I mean, yeah, Richard was so ahead.
Yeah.
And we basically made that keyboard synthy sort of a thing. And it's, when I play for people, they're just like, it's so good. I mean, I remember right when it came out, even this kid, Bo Burnham, that's like really into music and comedy, he was like, those 5 tracks on your album, I think nobody has heard them. I don't understand why, but they're so interesting and strong. And so Richard and I just really connected over that week that I stayed there, because we really just took our time and fucked around.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever hung out with a musician in a studio and like really saw what that was like. 'Cause one day he played me like 3 songs that he'd recorded that week or something, and his wife came in and it was just silent. We listened to these 3 songs, and afterwards her adoration and appreciation of what he had done. She just was blown away and in love with him about it.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, man, I hope someday I have a wife or my wife or somebody is that into what I'm making.
Yeah.
You know?
It was just completely blown away.
Yeah, and it was beautiful, and the songs were beautiful. I don't think those songs ever even came out. I mean, I can't even imagine the amount of
material that he had.
But we just really kind of hooked up there, and then became good friends.
Were you how in touch with him were you during the last year of him being alive?
Pretty in touch in the sense of like every couple weeks at least. And a lot of them were voice memos. Like the amount of voice memos I have from him are insane. We had an ongoing mushroom joke of like, he found out that my father-in-law at the time owned a place that cans mushrooms. And we had this joke about like my first time meeting him just being like, yeah, mushrooms. And he's like, no, I mean, they're just, canned. It's like, yeah, I got it, man. Mushroom. Just the guy that never gets it. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. His sense of humor was great. But then we spoke a week before it all crashed.
Yeah.
For probably 2 hours. And a lot of stuff that I didn't know was happening came out in that phone call.
Wow.
But he assured me that he was like, he told me he was in the parking lot about to check himself into a place. But then that was it, yeah. And then in hospice, where I know he didn't understand anything, but.
Yeah. So strange,
because you knew him from, I
met him in 2009.
Yeah.
I remember.
That's the year I met him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
I guess 2008 or something, like right around there, yeah. Because my album came out 2009, I think.
Yeah. Wild. Yeah. I met him back then in the summer of 2009. And I remember just, a Secret Canadian who I was with at the time. We both were on Secret Canadian Records, and it was Chris Swanson's idea, who owns the record label, one of the owners of Secret Canadian, said, you should work with Richard Swift. And Richard and I actually had a lot of friends in common, though I had never met Richard. And I was like, okay, well, I own his records, and I was like, this will be very interesting. I'll see what he says. And so I called him and I said, do you want me to send you demos? And he was just like, nah, just fuck that. Just come down, with your guitar, and we'll just go from there. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, go from there? Like, are we doing a record? Are we not doing a record?
Yeah.
So I made the drive down from Seattle to Cottage Grove, Oregon, and showed up. And I walked in the studio, and there was just a single chair and a microphone, and that was it in this room. And there was no headphones, there was no nothing. And it was very close to the console, and we were about as close as, it just seemed like it was across from me, like this close. And he said, well, do you want to try something? And I said, sure. But I still wasn't sure if we were making a record yet or not.
Uh-huh.
That's what was so weird. I was like, I think we're making a record here. And then I did one song, and then he recorded it, and then and then the tape was still rolling, and he said, you want to do another? And I said, sure. And then I did 10 songs in a row, almost as if I'm performing for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stopped the tape and was like, cool, I think we should go get a burrito.
I know the exact place you guys got a burrito, too.
And so we went to go get a burrito, and then we went to the House of Records to get a record shop.
Yeah, he took me in there.
In Eugene.
Everyone knew him.
Yeah, everyone knew him. But the drive, the 20-mile drive from Cottage Grove to Eugene, I just kept thinking, did we just make an album? Like, is this it? Like, I don't know what's going on. And then he said to me, because we weren't even talking about the recording. He just said, you're going to love this burrito place, blah, blah, blah. He kept talking about the burrito, and we'll go to House of Records and they have some cool stuff. And I said, okay. And then at some point he goes, hey, D, did you want to just like maybe go back and just lay down some bass and maybe some drums? Or I was like, sure. But that was when I realized, okay, we're making a record. But after all that, he was so just nonchalant and so easy to work with.
Yeah. Always. What was that record?
St. Bartlett.
St. Bartlett.
I just had no idea I was making the record. I knew I was going down to meet him.
Yeah.
And, possibly record some songs with him, but there was no agenda. you know? And I think that he really wanted it that way, because I think if he'd said to me, okay, this is going to be the record, these are the takes, I think he would have gotten different performances out of me, you know?
Yeah. That's also partially, you know, when you like land in a city and you have zero time before you perform, or you arrive and it's just like, get on stage. It's one of those situations where you get there, you're kind of like still, you just traveled like, and you probably gave a pretty true performance.
Yeah, I feel I did, because every song he would just say, I'd finish a song and he would say, all right, yeah, you know, it sounds great. Let's keep going, you know? I wish he would have saved a lot of the banter that happened in between takes, because there would have been a lot of it, you know?
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, there'd been a lot of it. But I remember, you know, I'd never, you know, when he passed, I had a very difficult time. I still am having a difficult time with his passing. I remember when he passed, I remember thinking to myself, how long does one grieve somebody after they pass?
Yeah. That, I really too, it was just so fast, you know? And he did seclude himself a lot towards the end, so it was hard to know really what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other day I got something hit me, and it really, you know, that time when we had that show at Largo, and I was like, how cool would it be if Richard saw us doing this, you know?
Yeah. You've been very open about your own sobriety.
Yeah.
Did having your time with Richard, how did that affect your sobriety?
I mean, at the time when Richard and I spoke that last time, both of us realized for the first time that each other were drinking the same amount, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we were basically on the same path, except he was maybe a year ahead of me as doing it, or 2 years, or I don't know what. But and I knew I was dying. I just knew. I could feel it. I'd wake up with my legs numb at night. I had my heart pounding. I would be drinking at 2, 4, 3 in the morning. Yeah. You know, and drinking up to, you know, 1.5 to 2 bottles of vodka a day. Wow. And that's basically what he was doing with his Dirty Jim, tequila. And when he died, it threw me into the worst alcoholic state I'd ever been in, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't come to the show in Portland that I put together and with Rado.
Yeah.
But after the show, I barely remember this, but we went to a bar, and everybody goes in the bar, all the musicians and stuff in Portland. And I was the last guy, and the guy just goes, yeah, you can't come in. And I was like, what? Why? And I was like, I'm with all, and like the manager even came out and was like, yeah, he's okay to let in. And he was like, he's not. And I just was like, why? And he said, something's not right with you. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Something's very not right with me. And I like went back to my friend's house that I was staying at. But it really got to a point of me being so fucking drunk that I really couldn't do much.
Yeah.
Like where Richard was at.
Yeah.
And then I had to finally check myself into a rehab. But that came at a hard time too, because I got Lyme's disease. So it all kind of happened at the same time.
Yeah.
But also when you're drinking like that, you'll use anything to really propel you.
Yeah.
But Richard's death hit me in a way to where I mean, it just didn't make sense.
Right.
And it was just so weird that I just talked to him.
Yeah.
But that really is what pushed me into sobriety.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that I was going to die that death.
Yeah.
And I was not that far from it.
Yeah. Do you find, here's an interesting question. Do you find, because Richard was very funny.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like naturally funny. I always have this theory that I find a lot of musicians want to be comedians.
Yeah.
And comedians want to be musicians.
Yep.
That's what I'm finding. And I know a lot of people who in the music world that are just fucking hilarious, man. They're very hilarious. But if you said to them, hey, write a bit, they couldn't do it to save their lives.
No, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but that's also the interesting thing about musicians and banter. You know, like, I'm not sure how often this would happen to you, but where you really like somebody's music and then you see them perform live in their banter and you're just like, oh, God.
Like, please stop talking.
Yeah, just give us the songs, please.
Yeah.
It's interesting because they have a captivative audience in the sense that they're there to hear the music, so they're going to listen to what they say.
Yeah.
And so then that makes them think that like what they're saying is more important, but really they're just like,
Right.
Song.
Yeah, right.
That we'll laugh and kind of giggle at what you're saying until you get to the song,
Yeah.
if that's going to make you happy. Or,
Yeah. Do you know, or can you name one of the funniest musicians you've ever seen live?
Well, I would say Richard probably is in that category.
Yeah.
But he also, what I loved about his live performances, though, when you watch it, like everything is basically said like in a way that, I don't know, it's like he's still a performance. It's like it's all part of the song almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Tillman's pretty funny.
Yeah, Jay told me, Josh, Father John Misty, hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And funny in regular life, too.
Yeah, hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. But I don't really think any musicians are really like they just don't get.
Yeah.
I don't know. Comedy is such a weird thing because I remember I brought Josh Tillman to see. He came with me to the Improv I had a set and Sarah Silverman went on.
Yeah.
And she was going off notes and Josh just didn't
like it.
Didn't get that because why would you go on stage and not know like to a T what you're doing? And I kind of was like, I guess that is like you guys learn songs or it's your song or it's a cover song or whatever, and you just have it and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be beautiful and good. And with comedy, it's going to be ugly sometimes. You're going to fuck up on stage. You're going to say something that doesn't work.
Well, wait till Josh becomes like my age, or unless he can, really memorize the hell out of his category, for what he's doing.
He seems to really know how to do that. I don't know how.
I don't know how he does either, honestly, because I mean, his songs are lyrically they're pretty intense, and lengthy, and a lot of words there, man. And I just think, man, I have a lot of words, and I have a notebook I read from every night.
Yeah.
I remember seeing
before tours. That's how you prepare. You.
Here's how I prepare. I make sure all the lyrics are in my notebook, and I'll bring the notebook with me. I have 2 notebooks I travel with, and in those notebooks are pretty much every song I've ever written.
Yeah.
So.
Handwritten or?
No. God, no. What are you doing? I'm not that creative. No.
But there's something about handwriting, too, that puts something into memory,
There is, but unfortunately, I can't read my own handwriting. I'm really horrible at it. So.
Yeah.
Were you good in school, by the way?
No. Horrible.
You were horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a special ed kid, so.
When I went to community college, I had to take a test to get in, so they know what you know.
Yeah.
And based off my test, they put me into an ESL class.
Really? Wow.
But I didn't try very hard. I never tried hard. So.
Yeah. Wow.
God, I was just thinking, though, about memorizing things. Like, I will handwrite my set every night, even if I'm going to do something similar.
Yeah.
Because it does put it in my head. Just the physicality of just handwriting it, which I'll do for auditions and stuff, too, sometimes, just to, like, see myself write it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have set lists. I walk up on stage and I always know what song I want to play first before I go on stage, and that's it. From there, I just sort of let things happen.
So on a tour, it's just random?
It's super random. I could be playing, could start off with a brand new song that no one's ever heard of before, and then go into the second song being from my first album from 1997.
Yeah.
It's so all over the map.
That's pretty great, though, because I do feel like sometimes when I get to a show and I know it's already pre-planned, you're like, well, it's probably not, if it's pre-planned, it's probably not that far off from, they're probably working off 20 songs and maybe changed 3 out from last night.
Yeah.
And they just know, like, the band, when you see a band where it's like the drummer starts going between the songs, you're like, oh yeah, they're all just like, there's no wild cards here. There's no. That's cool to know.
Can that happen in comedy to where, you have bits, but do you ever improv or kind of go on?
Oh, yeah.
Like riff?
Yeah. Yeah, and that happens when you're the most comfortable on stage and the audience is, mostly when the audience is with you.
Yeah.
I would say, though, that my set list goes like, the next song that you choose, is it based on what you want to do, or is it based on how you feel the audience is reacting?
For me, it's never the audience. I always say this, when I'm up on stage, I barely even know the audience is there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like working shit out on stage. It's almost like people bought a ticket to see me do therapy.
Yeah.
It's basically how it is. And so every song is basically, emotional for me.
Yeah. God, there's this really hard moment of me when I was in rehab where they had a guitar in rehab and they just put it in my room. You know, I was in like one of those nice like Malibu places. But,
Yeah.
you know, the beginning of rehab was so bad that I got sent to the hospital because they couldn't keep me alive in the rehab.
Yeah.
But those 2 days that I was in there before I got sent to the hospital were, I mean, I was having DTs, which is a delusional tremor things. And I was in the midst of a really long delusional thing. And I thought there was this group of women that were in my room. And they were watching me breathe as I was like sleeping and talking about my breathing. And you know, the whole thing was very, I just didn't really know. And at one point I sat up and started playing the guitar. And it was all kind of under this guise that I knew, they didn't know that I knew that they were there. So I was like just performing for them, you know? And I started playing these Townes Van Zandt songs, and in my thing, my hands were so shaky I couldn't play really.
Yeah.
And one of them said like, you know what, this is too sad, let's leave. He can't even play the guitar anymore. And I remember that was such a breaking point. And then I hit reality for a second, and I could hear the guy in the room next to me, the security guard, talking to him, and he's like, do you want us to tell him to stop playing? Because I was like screaming and playing these songs. And he was like, no, it's not that bad. He's playing some Townes Van Zandt, some Neil Young.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But I remember that the raw emotion that I had in those, God, I couldn't imagine like going on stage and showing emotion and, you know, playing songs emotionally. I guess that was a long way to get to that, but.
Yeah. So let's talk about this upcoming tour.
Yeah. We've got, so far it's planned. We know the venues.
We know where we're going.
Yeah. Do you want to drive between?
I think we should drive.
It's all possible? Like every city is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how do you do it on your comedy tours? You just
mostly, I mean, if it's mapped out.
Yeah. I'm the same way. So I basically just get my guitar and hop in a car and go, rental car and go.
Yeah.
So you're cool with just driving in a car?
Yep.
Okay.
Are you going to have any groupies on tour? Or?
No groupies.
Okay.
I don't have group. I'm not really a groupie person, so. What about you? Do you have groupies?
No.
No.
Here's
a question for you. Do you have hotel preferences?
No.
None.
I mean, I like a comfortable hotel. I mean, I'm not really into motels.
So if I said to you, hey man, I have this thing about like Marriott's.
You like them?
Yeah.
Cool.
Or like Hilton.
Great. Yeah.
You're cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay. What if I said to you, hey, I want to stop at this Cracker Barrel?
Cool.
Really?
Yeah.
How are you? What's your breakfast? Are you into breakfast?
I like a coffee. I'll probably have like protein bars that I'll like. I'll sit down and eat breakfast if that's what you want to do. I'll eat eggs and stuff like that. Yeah. Or I'll just eat on the go. I'm okay. Yeah.
So, because here's the thing about me.
I'm super flexible.
Are you?
Yeah.
But here's the thing about you're also a Pacific Northwesterner, which means you're naturally passive aggressive. So let's talk about this, Nick.
Okay.
If I want to go to Cracker Barrel every morning,
yeah,
would you be okay with that?
Yeah. As long as we just like that. I think the best part about doing those sort of things is like the night before. Like, I'm really good about like I like time. So it's like okay. So let's just say what time we want to get on the road.
Yeah.
And then work backwards. So, okay, if we want to be on the road at this time, then what time does that mean breakfast?
Yeah.
And then we just do that.
Well, I'll tell you what, because we're going to be in the northeastern part of the United States.
We might be dealing with snow.
Well, snow, but we also going to have a lot of time because the drives are shorter.
Yeah.
So I'm all about the noon checkout.
Okay, yeah. That's
Me
great.
personally.
Yeah.
What about in the car? What do you like to do? You like to listen to music? Like audiobooks? Like, what's your deal?
Yeah. Conversation, music.
Yeah.
Podcast. I don't care. Yeah, either way.
Okay.
You know, I'm only comfortable when the other person's comfortable.
Wow. Dude, you know what? You're a lot like me.
Yeah.
Which means we're going to be worried the entire time if the other person is very comfortable. This might be a very anxiety-filled tour. Nick.
You know what I really like too, which if you don't like it, that's fine.
What?
Rest areas.
You love them.
I just love pulling in, even if it's for a minute. Getting out, reading the little information about the area.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Getting to know the locals a little.
I would do tours, here's the thing. I always try to make tours very fun.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if I'm on my own.
Yeah.
So there's this great app called, I think it's basically you're looking at roadside attractions.
Oh, yeah.
You were into that stuff? Like the world's biggest ball of yarn is 10 miles ahead, dude.
Yeah. That and also I'll tell you what, I love a visitor center.
Yes. Do you ever get maps?
Yeah.
Even though you're probably not going to go stay or...
Yeah, fun decorations for inside the car, too.
That's awesome.
So a lot of times they have popcorn too at the visitor center, like the Oklahoma Visitor Center. What a great place. And this woman, Sandy, there.
You remember her name?
Because she talked to me for a while and she's like, here's a secret. It's 5 miles off the highway, but a guy that I dated in high school, and she's like 75. She's volunteering there. She's like, a guy I dated in high school runs it. And it was like this like swimming hole that people pay like a park to go into. And I went to it and swam in it and saw the guy there. And I was like, Sandy sent me. And he's like, that old bird. Feisty.
And he'll let you wear his prosthetic leg.
Okay, I've got to be honest here. I've got cleaners showing up at my house in 14 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap this up and just say, well, Nick, it was good talking to you. Here's to a great tour called the, what's the name of the tour again?
Sad Music, Sad Comedy.
Sad Music, Sad Comedy Tour.
With Nick Thune and Damien Jurado.
And I look forward to being on the road with you. It's going to be a good time.
And
who knows? Maybe we'll get married.
That would be insane. Totally like shotgun.
What would you do if I started doing your lines? from previous albums, like between
that'd be great if you were like
songs.
In between songs. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I'll do like the Nirvana joke. Where does they go? Like
a lot of times comedians like ask the other comedian, like if they're like the ones going up last, they're like, hey, do you mind not doing that dad piece? Because I kind of do dad stuff. So with you, I'll be like, hey, do you mind not doing like any C chords? Because I kind of do a lot of C chords. Can be good.
I should try it out one night where I'll memorize like some of your one-liners from previous albums, like your Nirvana joke, the corduroy joke.
Yeah.
And I'll see if people recognize that I'm doing it.
Maybe that could be kind of how we open, is you try a few out.
I do your bits from previous records. See
like,
how it
God,
goes.
this guy's he's a musician, but he do it all, really.
God, he's really funny.
Yeah. I'm nervous that the music people are going to leave.
No, they won't.
They better not if they're listening.
No, they won't. No, they won't at all. My fans are really cool, man.
Yeah, I bet.
I don't have asshole fans.
I bet that we hit the same audience.
I'm sure you have very cool fans.
Yeah.
What's your bro ratio like?
I mean, it's just a lot of dudes that look like me with girlfriends that are confused as to why they're there.
That's right. Okay, well, they're definitely going to love my music then.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, good, Nick. Thanks for coming in today and talking with me. And make sure you grab
You're a better interviewer than I am, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nick Thune, Damien Jurado, thank you so much for joining us here on the Talkhouse Podcast. For some fantastic pictures of the guys together, check out our socials. That's at Talkhouse across the board.
And of course, stemming off from this podcast, there's so many cool people that you can go revisit in conversation in our archives. We have Noelle Wells, who directed Nick Thune in Mr. Roosevelt. She's in conversation with Sashir Zameda. We have Robert Schwartzman, who directed Nick in Dreamland, him talking to his brother, Jason Schwartzman, and Damien Jurado's BFF, David Bazan, a.k.a. Pedro the Lion, talking with Tom Berlin.
Also, the singer-songwriter Alex Cameron got a really nice shout-out in this conversation. Definitely check out the past episode featuring him and Japanese Breakfast's Michelle Zahner. That was from Pitchfork Fest 2018, I believe.
There's also a great piece called Remembering Richard Swift by Hamilton Lighthouser, members of Foxygen, Delta Spirit, and a bunch of other awesome bands, which is just such a nice tribute to him, which is well worth reading too.
That's over at talkhouse.com. Today's conversation was recorded by Eric Rennaker at Bedrock.LA and by our co-producer Mark Yoshizumi in Brooklyn at Hook and Fade Studios. Also, of course, Nick Dawson was recorded by the one and only Nick Dawson at his mother-in-law studios, LLC.
For my sins. The Talkhouse Podcast theme song was composed and performed by The Range.
Make sure to subscribe to the show. We have an amazing month ahead here, including conversations between Blood Orange, a.k.a. Devontae Hines, with Beverly Glenn Copeland, Susie Quattro in conversation with Donita Sparks of L7, and recorded at LA Comic-Con, actors Juliana Harkavy and Ryan Hurst. Till next week, I'm Elliot Einhorn.
I'm Nick Dawson.
Peace! And Happy New Year.